Hey everybody, it's December Lace, and tonight on Pretty Geeky we have megastar, cover artist, and interiors. This is CB Zane.
What's up, everybody? I'm
Now,
so excited to be here.
now he's the creator of the Mighty Might, Scorpiana, Ursula, and he's also got Black Rabbit. He also does a number of comic characters that you've also heard of. Ones such as Tomb Raider, which I've shown on my page. He did this live during his show. You can find him on Monday nights. Hang on. This is part of the charm of my show.
And that was one of the things that, I knew somehow that was going to end up in your hands.
I mean, how could you not? Like, he knows me pretty well by now, but he knows that I am a total Tomb Raider fan. Big time. Now, if you can see close here, he went with a really good choice here, which is a black and white. And normally you see a lot of people do color, but he went with shadow on this one, and it's a really good call, especially with the skeletons.
Thanks. It's funny. I do a little bit of everything on my show, and I prefer the black and white and gray, like blending. I've been doing a lot more of that lately, but um, occasionally I do color, and I feel like I'm getting better. But
No, that's awesome. Like, what when you went with the black and white there, like how did you come up with that? Because everybody, I think their first indication would go with the turquoise on there, but when you were going with the skulls and I saw that happening like right in front of my face, I was like, yes, this is so cool, because a lot of people don't know this design was not planned. You came up with all of that on your own.
yeah, anytime with my show, it's very few times that I actually have the vision before I start. I might research a couple poses I want to play around with, but with Tomb Raider, that wasn't the case. And I knew as I was working with it, I wanted to work with negative space. So, working with the black in the background and trying to keep it moody, and then having the skulls blend into the bottom, that's working with the negative space and, like you said, the shadows. And it's one of the things I really like to do. And I get to do a lot of it when I draw Black Rabbit because it's a very noir type book to start. Um, so it's cool. That's the great thing about art. And the titles that I have, they all give me a chance to do something a little different.
Now, you mentioned Black Rabbit. A lot of the listeners that might not know about that, because that's one of your newer titles. Go ahead and talk to us a
Mhm.
little bit about that one.
Well, let me grab this
Yes, let's
cover.
see.
I think I grabbed the cover. Thought I did.
For
Where is
those
it?
that don't know, I am informed about Black Rabbit. This one is for the mature audience, so if you have kids for this part, I'm not sure why you would, but there
Um,
we're not kid friendly for Black Rabbit,
yeah.
but
It
it is
I
a great title. I can tell you that.
I don't think I grabbed the cover for it. I thought I had. I'm looking. Okay. Anyway, yeah, Black Rabbit is my mature title, and it's one of those things where I thought I wanted to do something adult, um, just to kind of stretch my horizons. I didn't want to do anything that was really bad. So it's kind of a late night Cinemax kind of thing, you know. And I always thought, like, there's all these shows and they have these scenes in them, and some people watch them just for the scenes. And I wanted it to be, I don't know, a story, and I wanted it to look beautiful. So I did a completely different style, like I mentioned, something very noir, and I went away from traditional panels with it. So it's all kind of like a collage. Every page, like part collage, part pinup. And I really love the way it turned out, and it's one of my favorite books to draw. Just because it's not traditional. So I can't believe I didn't. I thought I had set one aside, but
Well, since I know the boss, if you want to grab it, you can, because I do have art of yours to show in the meantime if you would like to.
all right, give me
So,
2 seconds, and I
okay.
will go do that. I'll be right back, and you can
Yeah, no
look
problem.
at Might and Scorpiana behind me.
So, like he was saying in the background there, he has blessed us with two of his other characters in the meantime. On the left is the Mighty Might, and on the right is Scorpiana. And ironically enough, those are the two characters that I've cosplayed as. And CB Zane is the one person that I've cosplayed like the majority of his characters for. I started out with the Mighty Might, and then I've also done a cosplay of Scorpiana over there, and that made it as a print. The Mighty Might has also been a cover, so that's been pretty exciting. You can see those both on my page.
Yeah, I think you were the very first person to cosplay Might, and couldn't be a more perfect person for it.
I might have been. I know that I was Scorpiana, because that was a print, and I, as a fun fact, I did that as a like for fun, because I saw that and I was just so excited to see that. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I just like took a picture, and then Wendy Steen Shaner helped me with the background. She did this killer background on it. It was so cool. And then we like sent you the image, and you're like, this is cool. Can I do this as a print? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be awesome. But
I was just blown away. I was like, this is the coolest thing. Like,
oh, thank you. Yeah, like we just all had fun with that. Like, I love Scorpiana. She's, for those of you at home, she is a pro wrestler, and she has superpowers due to an accident. But I'll let CB get into that a little bit later.
Yeah. Do you want to backtrack to Black Rabbit real quick and then work forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We have the long anticipated art.
This is a cover I grabbed. This is the main cover for issue 2. And you can see she's a very seductive character. Let me see if I can. Well, I can show you this. These pages are good. Well,
and you can see right there from the pose, from the angle, like how the book is going to go to the upshot of her and how she's like in control. There's dominance there. Like the people that backed the campaign have nothing but great things to say about it. It's a really good book.
So here's an example of the way it's laid out. Like I said, it's a non-traditional kind of a collage, and the words are written in prose. There's no word balloon, so you read it more like a novel, I guess.
The thing is, it's written really well too.
Thanks, and that was a big part of it. I mean, it is. This is where we go earmuffs for the younger viewers. It is erotica, and I meant for it to be that. I'm not trying to shy away from it. It's just, as a creator, as an artist, again, it gives me a chance to do something different as an artist and reach a different audience as a creator. Whereas, like, Might Over Top is a very traditional kind of comic book. Like, you'll never see her nude. It's not going to happen. That's not her. She's my superhero, and I'm super excited about what direction she's going. And then I have Scorpiana, who is, I guess, the R-rated comic book that I do, with the option for something a little bit more. But traditionally, within the pages that people get, it's sort of R-rated. And then Into the Suck is my sci-fi, which gives me a chance to get into the sci-fi realm. And that's definitely like a PG-13. So I kind of hit all the levels that I want to, and still allows me to be creative.
I think a lot of people can appreciate the wholesome touch that Might has. I know that I do, because, like, honestly, I love all of your titles, and Might is probably my favorite just because it is so much of a traditional comic book, like you said. It's like, there are not a lot of titles out there, and it is so well done and so well written and so well drawn and it's just, like I said, very wholesome, and it takes me back to comic books when I was a kid. And you can read that, and she's just like happy to be there, and she's got superpowers, and she saves the day, and she's just cute, and it's adorable. And like, I do love reading erotica, obviously, but like, it's just, you just feel kind of protective over Might. Even though she can protect everybody else, the reader, I feel like, gets that kind of protectiveness over her. I
I
don't
have
know
to
if you were
write that
doing that
quote
on
down.
purpose or not, but
That's a great quote. Like you feel protective of her, even though she's trying to protect everyone else. That is a big part of the heart of the book for me. Um, I always want there to be a heart underneath Mike's story. Um, it, believe it or not, like Mike's a character that's been around in my sketchbook for oh, 20 years maybe. And you're seeing like now the final incantation of who she became. Originally, she started off with a sort of Harley Quinn look, hair wise. It was blonde with pink ends to it, and ponytails. And by the time I got to the point where I was going to put her in a story on the page, that look, that blonde with the streaks at the end, was already done a million times. And I'm like, okay, if I can't go with her original look, now what? So I test ran a couple different looks, and the Space Buns was the one that people gravitated to with the pink hair. And I would say of all my titles, when I'm at a con, I probably get more comments about Might than I do anything. Lots of people come up and they're like, "I love the design. What a cool character." Other creators wanting to do crossovers with her, so
yes,
it's super cool. And I have big plans for her going forward. Might number 3 is really setting the stage for a big event that's going to be happening probably around issue 6.
that's another thing that you do with your line of comics that I think is really cool too. Is your other characters will pop in the comics like kind of unannounced, but it's still they fit, and they're drawn in a way that is like they can go into the universe and it'll make sense. It's like it's not like they're shoved in and it's just kind of like wonky or out of place at
Mhm.
all. It's like they just fit so perfectly, and I think that is awesome because sometimes I'll read a comic and it's like, what are they doing here? It makes no sense, and like my geek brain is just like
Yeah.
what? Where did you get the idea for Might and for Scorpiana and for all your other characters? Like, did they? I know that you said that Might was in there for 20 years, but did they all just come about gradually, or did they just kind of like pop into your head at the same time?
Um, I think they all evolved over time. Might just she started because I've always gravitated toward the powerful character. Like my favorite X-Man is Colossus. And I
Nice.
like the fact that Colossus is just that. He's this metal colossus, and he looks intimidating, but he is a character who paints and draws and has a soul and takes Kitty Pryde under his wing. And they develop that romance that's not supposed to happen, but he can't help it. So he's a romantic at heart. So underneath that hard shell that he literally has is this softy. And I don't know, maybe I see a little bit of myself in that too. But I've always liked the the powerful character. So, and Might was the one that, like, she is the diminutive powerhouse, and I love that about her. And I wanted to do something with that heart. And actually, one of the biggest influences for me in her storytelling was the TV show Scrubs. Scrubs is one of my favorite shows of all time. And I always love that you could laugh 1 minute in that show and you could cry the next. And it just had a way of tugging at your heartstrings, and it could be serious and it could be fun. And that's where I want my story to be. I want you to be engrossed in what's serious and then fall in love with her a little bit because she's playful. And I want you to be able to cry a little bit with her too. And I pulled off something with her origin story, the first one that I did, that I don't even know if I thought I was capable of doing as a writer. The element of cancer being in there was close to me because my mom went through it before she passed. So there's some ties in there about her, and then just doing a character that's just happy, that embraces being a hero. So she is my outlet for a lot of emotions.
I
And
think
then
that.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that in that first issue, you definitely pulled that off because it is a very touchy subject with a lot of people, and it just went um, with the character's story so well, and it didn't conflict with her story in a way that made it a real a really heartbreaking thing to
Mm,
lose the reader. It still pulled it off where you could make it a happy story and one of strength. And I think that you really nailed it there. And
thanks.
yeah, and it's good that you're able to use that in a place of um, in a place that's able to get you through that, because that it could have consumed the character and it could have consumed you, and you didn't. You took that to another level. And for any of the readers out there, they should definitely pick up that issue. And it's definitely a great origin story, and it's a great story of the character's friendship, and it's very unique. And like I said, the character really stands out. I actually had a post that was like, this is like the indie comic that you want to pick up.
Thanks so
Oh
much.
yeah, you did it.
Um, and I want to keep that going. It was weird when I did Might number two. I knew it was going to be setting up things. It was a transition, first of all, from her life in high school to college. And I want to keep that heart going, but I needed to set things in motion first, and still kind of reintroduce her as this hero. And so now, when we get to issue three, we start bringing in relationships a little bit more, and that's going to carry through. I don't know, this next story arc as things get bigger and more troublesome for her. And I just hope I'm able to keep that balance ultimately that I did with the first book.
So for a little bit of background on Might, this is a pretty big deal for someone like me because I am extremely short in real life. I know that everyone thinks that Miss December is very statuesque. There we go.
Mhm.
Oh, it's just like the banner. Clutch the
Yep,
pearls. So Might is she. What is her official height? Is it 5 foot?
5 foot.
Okay. So, like her, I am also 5 foot, and this is a big deal because in comics, there's not a lot of 5 foot ladies out there. And this means a lot to me because um, superpowers and height are usually like. Storm is, I think, 6 foot, and
Yeah,
people are. I think that the ladies are usually like a 5'7" minimum, something like
right.
that. Might is 5 foot, and this was just glorious news to me. So Might is 5 foot. She has superpowers, and one of the abilities that she has is she flies, and she has super strength. Right? She flies.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she kind of flies like the Hulk flies. She's able
Okay.
to propel through a big jump, although she might be developing a little bit of flight. Spoiler alert. So, um,
It's like
there's
I
there's
saw
stuff
her
to
in the
come with
air.
her. She's still growing,
Okay. I didn't. I
and
spoiled
not
nothing.
inside.
I'm a diehard fan. I read Might, so you guys better be on the same page as me. But anyway, as you can see, super strength is one of them. But she is also very tiny, and you can usually only see this like when you're in the context of another character. But he makes that very apparent in his drawings. So if you're a short queen like I am, this is very important because she's tiny and I love it. Hence the mighty might.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I love her. Like she's not supposed to be a powerhouse, and she is. She is. The mighty might, like you said. And like I said, I got some really fun things ahead for her and her friends, and just building her world.
I love it too because the people like when they see her, it's the same kind of commentary that I would get. Like, oh, you're just a little bitty thing, and then she like goes off like a tank, and it's awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, keep that up.
Oh yeah, she is the brunt of all the short jokes, and especially issue 2 when she's fighting Horace. Um, everything is a little joke, and she even is like, really, like, come on, you can't come up with something better. As she tries to quit, and she's not very good at it either. She's not a Spider-Man by any means. She's learning the ropes, but trying to have fun with it.
And she's as strong as she is. She's very different from Scorpiana, though.
Yes. So it's funny. Scorpiana started off as a character that Mike Shoemaker and I, uh, Mike's the writer for Scorpiana. We were developing kind of this group of giant women we called Leviathans, and we had like characters from all different parts of the world that battled these giant creatures. Um, kind of like what's the robot monster movie? Pacific Rim, but it was giant females. And Scorpiana, her design was one of those characters. And Mike and I have been going through. I even started penciling the story a little bit, and it fell by the wayside. And eventually, she kind of took on her own persona. We liked her design, and I was really sold on it. I was vacationing in Cape Cod, and I saw this girl on the beach, woman on the beach, and she had this huge scorpion tattoo on her side. And I thought, that is a character. It looked badass. Um, and I was like, okay, where do I make this happen? And so that became Scorpiana's kind of signature. And the wrestling was something that Mike and I are huge fans. I shouldn't say are. I'm not as big a fan as I used to be. I for a lot of different reasons, and you and I could go on and on and on about that. I know we
No,
could.
you know what? A lot of people are like, I used to be a fan, I'm not so much anymore, and that's totally cool because a lot of people say that.
Yeah, and I have my reasons for it. I still
Yeah.
tune in just to see who's doing what. But because I was such a big fan, still a fan, and Mike was, there was like, yeah, she's going to be a wrestler. That's her background. And I keep trying to talk with Mike, and I think he's on board too. At some point, we are going to do like a flashback issue of just her wrestling days. And of
Do
course,
tell.
yes. I don't know. I mean, we've seen a flashback already to where she used to work, and a little flashback, I believe, in the first issue of her actually, wrestling then. And that plays a part in her moves too, her fighting style. So when she's taking on some bad guy, she's using suplexes, she's using power slams, she's drop kicking. That's all sort of part of it. Shawn Michaels super kick. All of those things factor into her fighting style, which is a lot of fun to do too.
How can you not love this comic book, people? Like, seriously.
And I know there's a scene in there where I think she does this flying suplex that would absolutely break someone's neck, but that's the super comic book part of it, not the realistic part. And I know that guy's head would probably snap, but still, it's the drama of the moment.
I mean, if you're reading comics and that's the point of, like, where your suspension of disbelief is shattered, like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, but some people,
Like,
they
that's
get
what
caught
does
up.
it?
But yeah, Scorpion is taken off. Again, Mike has done such a nice job creating that universe, and really, Scorpiana has become the focal point of our superhero universe. It's where Mike first got her introduction. It's where Scarlet Steel gets her introduction. Um,
That's right. Scarlet Steel, I think, is, she. Did I get that wrong? Is she your newest part, or was Black Rabbit your newest one?
it's funny. Technically, Scarlet Steel is Mike's baby. Like, Might is mine. Scarlet Steel is hers. Hers, sorry, is Mike's. That's been his baby since. Gosh, I honestly, when I first met Mike, it was 20 years ago almost. Mutual friend said, "Hey, I have a writer. You're an artist. I think you guys would hit it off. And one of the first books we started planning was Scarlet Steel, although she went under a different name at that point. Her original name, I think it was like Rebelette, but that had to be adjusted as time went by. So some of the comic book covers that Mike used for Scarlet Steel were some of the like sketches and stuff I did for her like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that we kept around, and he repurposed his covers, which was kind of cool. But so I'm sure I'm going to continue to contribute to it. I may take on interior duties, and I'll definitely be doing covers for it all the time. It depends on how my schedule works out. But she was introduced to Scorpiana. In fact, if you look at the first issue, if anyone has first issue of Scorpiana, you'll see the very first look of Might in there, like her original look that I was going with. It's just in the background on the screen as they're talking about these other characters that have gotten powers, and her first look is in there, pre-Space Buns. That's how new like that look came along. And then in the second book is when you see her fully introduced.
I remember that. I was so amped. That's because
yeah.
I was like, CB, you have to talk to me about this.
Yep. Yeah, and we've used it to introduce a lot of different characters that are on the drawing board, so to speak, that will make appearances. They'll float in and out of Scorpiana, somehow involved with the Quest, which is, I always say it's sort of our version of Shield, but not exactly. But it's the easiest way to get the concept across. And they play a big part in Mike's world. So it's a great vehicle, Scorpiana, for our universe. And Black Rabbit originally was a design I was working on. She was going to be a villain in Might. And as I kept working on her, I realized she was too sexy for Might. It just, even though she was a good contrast for what Might is, it didn't work. And in fact, actually, in Might 2, the scene with the museum, the robbers, originally was supposed to be Might intercepting the robbers, but in the background, Black Rabbit was going to be running around stealing things. And that was going to lead to a confrontation down the road, and I ended up nixing that when I took Black Rabbit in a completely different direction.
I'm not going to lie, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that you said something during this interview, because your diehard fans will be like, oh man, that would have been so sweet. But, well, thank you for letting us have that little tidbit. But that would have been awesome.
And I don't know, Mike just approached me the other day about, like, is Black Rabbit in our universe, or is she mutually exclusive? And I haven't said she's not in the universe, but I mean, her story is, I don't know, maybe she could make her way into Scorpiana, but then she's in Might's world again, and I don't know that works. So,
if she's a paying fan in one of Scorpiana's wrestling gigs in her origin story, technically she could be in the universe without running into Might, maybe.
True. Yeah, we could Might away from her, but I think at some point Might and Scorpiana will probably cross paths again. That's nothing that is in the plans just yet, but it can always happen, because it's our Outpost 426 universe.
I think the best way of explaining that, it's like if June Cleaver met Barbed Wire
in the
90s, so maybe it'd be best if their worlds were separate.
Something like that, yeah.
But with your style, is there an artist that you drew particular inspiration from?
Ooh, that's a great question. The two artists that always pop into my head when I ask, like, who my favorite artists are Adam Hughes and Paul Smith. Paul Smith had a great run on the X-Men and then on Doctor Strange, and he was my first love as an artist when I was collecting comics. And Adam Hughes has kind of taken the mantle as my favorite. I got a chance to talk with him in Baltimore this past year. It was kind of surreal because I bought like a print from him, which I still need to hang up somewhere. And I'm just gonna walk the floor for a little bit, and I'm standing there looking at, I don't know, something off. And I turn to my left, and there's Adam Hughes standing there, and I was like, "Oh, Adam Hughes!" Like, and I geeked out and fanboyed for a moment, and told him how much I appreciated his art, how much he made me want to be an artist, and he's very appreciative, very humble, and I tried not to take up too much of his time because he wanted to see the floor, and I don't want to be that person. Even though I could have stood there for an hour and just been just like, but I mean, looking at all the books, it's hard not to say that George Perez probably, influenced me in some way. John Byrne, um, even J. Scott Campbell, fits into sort of my zany style when I do that.
No pun intended.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many. Milo Manara is another one. When I was trying to show my portfolio at conventions, Steve Lieber, who is Hawkman, I think he may have even written Hawkman. He did, what was it? Whiteout. It was made into a movie, I think, with Kate Beckinsale. He did that, and he was really nice to me at conventions. He took me kind of under his wing, said, "Hey, here's what to do, here's what not to do." And he thought that Milo Manaro would be a good person for me to study with my style. He was like, you use clean lines. Take a look at this guy." And I did, and I was like, wow. So that became an influence on me, and I'm forever grateful for Steve Lieber for doing that. I don't. He probably doesn't even remember me, but it was such a nice thing because I saw him at like 3 conventions in a row, and it got to the point where I knew him, he knew me, and he was just really good in guiding me into looking at things and working on my style. So I was again very very humbly appreciative of all that he did for me.
You do have a very distinct style, like when you're or at least when I'm focusing on art, I can tell right away when something is yours. Is that the majority of how you were able to develop your craft? You'd mentioned studying under him, but is that how you honed your craft, or is there a lot more to it than that?
Um, it's funny. I never went to art school. I took a couple art classes in high school, and when I started going to conventions, everyone I talked to, it was really kind of 50-50. Some people went to art school, developed their art, and some people were like, no, I just looked at things and I drew things. And that was me. I looked at things, I drew things. And there were some people that were like, hey, work on doing still lifes, doing this. And still lifes to me are boring. But for the longest time, I didn't use references for my art. And because I always considered it cheating. And now I realize like everyone uses references, and it's just something like if I want to draw, like I'm looking at your arcade game behind you. If I want to draw an arcade game, I could do it from memory, but it's a lot more accurate if I have something that I can look at and draw. And it's a challenge at times doing stuff like background stuff, but um, I've just worked at my craft, I guess, and just I try to get better every single day. It's interesting to hear you say that I have a certain style because I look at it and I'm like, I obviously know my art, and I'm able to do that with a lot of other artists. Like, oh, I knew that style. When I was collecting comics for the longest time, I didn't even have to see the artist's name, and I was like, oh, that's Byrne, that's Paul Smith, that's Perez, that's you know, I don't know, whoever else was doing stuff. Um, but I don't see that in my own art. I don't see like a style that is like CB Zane, if that makes sense. I think it's cool that you do, and I guess other people do. And sometimes I wish I could have that existential moment where I could step away and see my art from someone else's view to see what they see.
So do I.
But
You're
I'm
missing
appreciative that
things.
what's that?
So do I. You're missing things.
um, I'm really appreciative that people recognize my art. It's a really humbling experience, uh, and I don't usually do very well with compliments. I, I'm very appreciative of them. Don't get me wrong. I love when someone says, "Hey, I'm a fan. I like your art." But I always feel like I have so much better to do to accomplish a different level to keep working toward. And luckily, I still love it.
Well, I apologize in advance because I do tend to gush over your work because I saw interiors, I've seen covers. There is no one else that can do what you do. That includes the series of wrestling covers that I think that's how I first saw you, and
Yeah.
that's what pun intended drew me to you. CB Zane drew a series of wrestling covers that incorporated some characters, and it was some of the coolest things that I've ever seen. It was a tag team match. He did entrances, and
Mhm.
I don't see that from like anybody. Like nobody else does that, and I was like, and it, like what a cool idea for collectibles, and like you can like if someone has the idea later on to put them together and to make an entire entrance, like the details he put in this was insane. He drew the creator in the crowd, like he drew signs, he drew some fans like as people he knew, he drew two characters like one reaching. It was just awesome. So I think that was the very first time that I saw you do your art.
Yeah. Thanks. Those are fun covers to do, obviously, because like I mentioned, huge wrestling fan. And I even got to do a wrestling cover for Wendy with
Yes,
you on it.
I was trying not to mention that because I didn't want to do a shameless self promotion. But yes, Wendy
Oh,
does
you,
have a wrestling cover available
yeah.
if you're
And
interested.
I was so I drew it and I showed Wendy and I said, "Do you think December will mind if I like throw her in here?" And she was like, "I think she'll love it. Let me see." Because there was the risque version of it, but we didn't show any December in there. So
You playfully covered that up, and I appreciate that. It's like Might, and I loved it.
yeah,
And my brain exploded when I saw that. I lost my mind. But
I
speaking,
that is truly one of my favorite things to do is to bring in people I know. Um, I was just talking about this on my show last night. I There's a lot of times I'm asked to draw crowd scenes, like whether it's the background of those covers or a crowd scene in a book, and they can get really kind of tedious. And there's a lot of detail and a lot of work that goes into it. And it's a lot of times too. Those crowd scenes are the ones that I think people just flip to the next page. It's like, okay, there's the characters, there's a crowd, flip it. There's one. Almost anytime I have to draw a crowd, I am going to throw some Easter eggs in it. So if you ever see my art, whether it's a cover or an interior, there's probably someone, something, somewhere in that crowd that you can find.
speaking of wrestling, I have a couple of pieces to show. And no, you do not just do wrestling. And no, I do not like him just because he does wrestling. He does fantastic art. But I wanted to show off. This was the piece that I'm going to show next. He was generous enough to include this with it. And this was before Scorpiana.
Yes, that was gosh, that was something Mike and I worked out together when we were hammering out ideas for like a wrestling kind of character. Um, and it was just something that we were like, oh, let's do this pose,
But you can
and I knew
see your
there was.
lines in here. They're amazing.
Thank you.
Forgot about the compliment. Sorry, the fans out there can see the lines. They're incredible. And then, real quick, because I had seen the wrestling covers that he did, he was also, you were doing commissions at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I am I'm very choosy with commissions. Normally, it's usually because I can't get a lot of them, but I was able to, and you were so nice about this one, and I was just like, I want a character doing a specific pose. It was like the top pose, like this, and he drew a belt for me, and like in the got the boots.
Yeah,
It's so cool.
thanks. And
Looks amazing.
it's really cool to do commissions for people that are truly like into, like for you, like that. First of all, I feel the pressure of having to do a great or try to do a great wrestling pose, wrestling picture, especially given that you're such a big fan of it. And then wanting to make sure that it's something that you like, that you're happy with.
I had no doubt. I was like, oh, he's fine. He got this.
But that was a lot of work, a lot of fun. Yeah, it's fun doing commissions, doing the Monday night show.
Yes, tell us more about the Monday night show.
So Monday nights, CB Zane show, because I couldn't come up with a more creative name, and that just kind of stuck, and I missed out on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, a side note about that. In like 1 second, I didn't think about this, and he's still passed this up. I told him he should use Monday Night Draw.
Yeah.
For wrestling, and he's upset that he never went with this, and so am I.
Yeah.
He's still just like he's not going with this. I'm like, CB. So anytime I make an appearance on a show, it is then Monday Night Draw, because he has the added concept of a wrestler. But until then, it is Monday Night.
I feel like I've seen someone else use Monday Night Draw, so maybe I would have infringed on their,
I'm on Tuesdays, so people can say "see you next Tuesday." That's like the only reason.
No.
That way that way people will remember it. That's like literally the only reason.
I would never say that to you.
Huh?
I would never say that to you. Ever.
Now people can without guilt.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, Monday nights on Facebook and Artist Alley Shopping Network, I do a live drawing from 9 to 11, and it's always set up the previous Sunday. I post for ideas that people want to share with me about characters they want me to draw, and it's good because it gives me some really unique characters, some characters that there's characters I've drawn that I'm like, I have no idea who this character is. I've never watched this show. I've never played this video game. So literally an hour before the show, I'm looking up reference pictures to see what their costume, their outfit looks like. And the toughest part about that is usually when I draw a character, I want to capture their personality. Anytime I do in a cover, I want to do that, unless it's a cheesecake cover, which is its own thing and is fun too. But usually I want to tell a story. And this goes back to my love of Adam Hughes. I got his cover run book, and he talked about drawing Wonder Woman. He said, I feel like Diana should always be smiling. Like she's just, she's happy to be Wonder Woman type thing. Not that she's not sometimes gritting her teeth, and that resonated with me. And it's one of the reasons why I like doing interiors. But like, these pictures behind me are story elements in the book as much as they're put up in poses. So yeah, that's part of the storytelling element. How did I get sidetracked on this now? What was the
your
original
show?
Oh, the show.
And also, is it Eastern Central Mountain Time, 9 to 11, you said?
Yes, it's Eastern time zone. So 9 to 11 Eastern time zone. So they give me ideas, and depending on how many I get, usually it falls somewhere between 4 and 10. I take those ideas. If there's a lot of likes for one, then that definitely becomes one that I offer up. But I whittle them down to 5 choices, and then I put it up for a poll on Monday. the poll closes at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then an hour later, I draw whichever one ended up winning. There's been a couple times we've had to go into overtime, which was interesting. But it's really kind of cool because it's people like wanting to see these characters. And for the people who maybe get bored seeing Harley Quinns all the time, or I don't know, insert common name that you see drawn all the time. I don't usually end up drawing those mainstream characters. It's usually someone different. Sometimes it's my own characters, but like I have, I'll grab this. So, an Ian Flux.
Yes. Oh, that looks hot.
This one is still available. I had so much fun with that one, but kind of an off the beaten path character,
That's another thing. When he draws them, they're available for claim.
Correct. This was a Lily Monster I did a couple weeks ago. This is my cartoony style. I call it my zany style. So there's Lily Monster. This is another like zany style. This one actually did sell. I got to send it out. There's a Lady Death.
You have some that like the claim gets like immediately going. So as soon as you post like an idea, I wouldn't be surprised if the claim just goes like that.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it takes a little bit.
Very nice. Oh, that's so pretty.
So this one was claimed as well. So a lot of wrestlers make their way into the suggestion box, which is really cool. This was one I did the other day.
Back to wrestling.
Kind of funny. Yep.
It always comes back.
This is Bud Root's Cave Woman.
Yeah, you know what? Cave Woman is a really good example because a lot of people, it's a very obscure one, but so many fans are just very loyal to that one. I love Cave Woman, by the way.
I absolutely love Cave Woman, and this was funny on a couple levels. I went to draw that night, and I realized I didn't have any paper left. So this is on cardboard. This is the back of the paper sheet that I have, and I was so worried that it was going to not take the ink, and it ended up being a really good surface to work on.
Nice.
So that's an 11 by 17, but I've always been a big fan of Cave Woman. I really, really want Bud Root to do a Mike cover for me.
Oh, that'd be something.
I don't know this. I know he's a little naughty with his art, but I just think like he draws such an innocence with Miriam that would fit Mike really well, I think. So, and he was a cool dude.
Just be prepared for that.
Yeah, I know.
She'd probably be like strategically placed with leaves.
Yeah,
but,
I might have to give a little art direction, but that's okay. I'd be willing to work with it.
All right, one more thing before you give a shout out to all of your pages where fans can find you. One more thing I wanted to mention. You do this awesome thing every holiday season. I think it's the holiday season where you do the sketch cards. And I was lucky enough, I have 2 of them over the years, and that's like more than enough that I could ever hope for. One of them is Tomb Raider, of course. See if I can get that lined up there.
Yep.
And I again lost my mind with this, and I'm showing them because I don't really I don't have too many pictures of them on my Facebook. And then this was another one after the Bruce Timm style.
Yeah.
Which I am a diehard Batman the Animated Series fan of, in the Poison Ivy. How did you come up with that idea?
It was just one of those things I wanted to give back. I have a group of people that follow my show pretty regularly, and I just want to do something for them. I I do art because I love it. I create books because I love to create books. And if there's something I can do that, makes someone feel good for a little bit, and being around the holiday season, you never know what people are going through. So if sending, a card and giving them a chance to win this, because we do like a random drawing to win the card when it's all said and done. If I can make someone's, holiday just a little bit better, then that's why I do it.
No wonder December and CB are such a good fit, right?
You know it. We would have made a great tag team.
I know. I wanted you to be my cheerleader personal security. I actually got to meet him in Baltimore, and when I saw him, he's a big dude. He's like, you're like what, 6'3"?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I saw him. There's an awesome picture of us on Facebook together if you guys get a chance to see it. And I was like, yeah, he needs to be cheerleader personal security, because if you see him, he's a really tall dude and nobody would mess with him. So that would have been awesome. If I ever come back to wrestling, he's going to be my cheerleader
in the next life, right?
Yeah. Where can people find you?
Really, the place to find me is on Facebook. CB Zane on Facebook. I've said this on a couple shows. I'm really bad about having gotten a website underway. I've attempted 3 of them, and as I get into them, I forget about them, or I get caught up drawing. So that is still a work in progress. So yeah, reach out to me on Facebook or follow me when I have my Kickstarter campaigns. I do have a page on ArtStation. I can't remember if I still have one on DeviantArt or not, but ArtStation, I need to update a little, but I'm there as well. But Facebook's the place for now. I do post once in a while to Instagram, and that's about it. I have Black Rabbit campaign going on right now.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, 8 days left in Black Rabbit 3, so just over 400 backers right now.
Excellent. I can post the link on my page along with where to find you, and then everybody can hit that up, and then we'll get those backers really happy with some of that. Again, it is mature audiences, so please, if you want to follow CB's other Kickstarters, click the creator link, and then you'll get updated when he posts the less naughty campaigns like Might, and then the rated R ones such as Scorpiana and Into the Suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we'll make it really easy for the fans to follow you so that you can get on the CB zaniness. CB, thanks so much for letting us have you on Pretty Geeky. I really appreciate it. Everybody,
I will do this anytime. I feel like I could talk to you another 2 hours.
Oh
so
yeah, easily.
Just say when.
Yeah, we'll do this again for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make it like formal sounding in my awesome interviewer voice, but really we'll just do this again on a See You Next Tuesday. But you'll be there on Monday Night Draws.
Yes.
But yeah, please come again sometime. I'll have you on again as soon as I can. But you guys know where
I would do this. Yeah, I would do this weekly if I could.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody cannot handle Miss December on that much of a basis, so we're gonna see how well the experiment goes. See, look he's perfect. He knows what's up. Thanks for joining us tonight. Go hit up CB Zane, give him that well-deserved